everyone, this is Megan from Catalyst. I want to thank you for dialing into today's webinar, GDN Game Changers. We're super excited to share this presentation with you all. We're just going to wait another maybe 2 or 3 minutes to let some of the other attendees get dialed in, but then we will kick things off, so just hold tight. Hi everyone, it's Megan from Catalyst. Thank you for dialing into today's webinar, GDN Game Changers, 4 tips for driving results and reaching audiences with the Google Display Network. Before we jump into the content, I just want to cover off on a few small housekeeping items. First, just a few notes about your webinar software. You'll have a webinar panel on your screen. That's where you can find all of your dial-in information. It's also where you'll be able to submit questions to us. We'll make sure to address all of the questions at the end of the webinar. And one of the questions we get most frequently is, will the slides be shared? Will the recording be shared? And the answer to that question is yes. So after the webinar is over, we'll make sure to email out the recording so that you can re-watch today's content. Next, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. So as I mentioned, my name is Megan Lavin, and I work here at the marketing team at Catalyst. I'll be facilitating today's session, and I'll also be assisted by my colleague, Erica. You'll hear from her a little bit later in the webinar. And our expert speakers for today are Luke Anapolis from Google, and also Cara, deBeer, who is a paid search director here at Catalyst. They're both GDN wizards, so we're thrilled to have them presenting to everyone today. Next, just a little bit about Catalyst, who we are and what we do. So Catalyst is a leading digital marketing agency focusing on search and social advertising. And this year actually marks our 20th anniversary. We're really proud of that because over those 20 years, we've excelled at developing global digital solutions that are innovative, effective, and constantly deliver business results for our clients. And through today's content, you'll get sort of a sneak peek or some insight into that thinking that allows us to deliver such great results. And next, I'll pass it over to Luke to give a quick introduction to himself and Google.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to be here with the Catalyst team. As Megan mentioned, my name is Luke Anapolis, and I am an audience and display product specialist here at Google. What that means specifically is my role is to be a display evangelist and help educate our internal and external teams here about all the different display products that we have to offer. At a larger picture here, at Google, we allow marketers and business owners to connect with their customers across a various number of platforms, including search, YouTube, and Gmail, as well as the Google Display Network, to allow you to achieve your marketing goals wherever your customers may be online. So thanks so much for having me today. I'm really excited to dive in.
Great. Thank you, Luke. Oops, there we go. So now getting to the good stuff. Today our speakers will be sharing 4 great tips for how you can use the GDN to reach your audience and maximize your business results. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this is going to work. Luke is going to cover the first 3 tips, which are identify, re-engage, and expand. Cara is then going to jump in, and she's going to cover off on the last tip, which is innovate. She's going to share some new and interesting thinking around different ways to use the GDN above and beyond some of the traditional uses which you may already be familiar with. So without any further ado, Luke, I'm going to pass the screen over to you so that you can dive into tip number 1. Everyone just bear with us as we make Luke the presenter.
Great, thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. So it looks like my screen is presenting great. So yet again, my name is Luke. Thanks so much for joining us today. So I'm here to talk about how you can leverage the Google Display Network and your audiences to help you identify, re-engage, and expand across your customer base. So at a baseline here, we know that users' online journeys have grown increasingly complex. Think about the last time that you made a purchase, whether something small like a new workout outfit or maybe something big like a vacation. We know that 90% of users switch between devices and platforms to complete tasks online. I've been in the process of booking a vacation to Japan in a few months, and over this journey, when booking flights and booking hotels, booking day trips across the country, I know my own online journey looks incredibly complex. I'm doing research on my phone. I'm hopping on my desktop and laptop to read reviews online, and I'm always on my iPad watching YouTube videos of different cities and places to go within Japan. So what's interesting is that when we think back to how marketing has changed over the last 20 years or so, traditional media has always relied on context as a proxy for reaching our audience. What I mean by that is, think about if you were a sports apparel brand 10 or 15 years ago trying to reach your customers. Maybe you're launching a new line of athletic wear. You'd probably take out an ad in a sports magazine, or maybe play an ad over a football game on the radio in order to reach that audience based on the context of who was viewing that magazine or who was listening to that radio ad. Now that technology's changed, we know that our online solutions eliminate that need for a proxy and allow you to no longer have to rely on that context, so you can engage directly with your potential customers and serve them relevant ads wherever they may be online, whether it's search, watching videos on YouTube, or all across the GDN. So let's imagine a world where you can reach millions of potential customers across various platforms and devices. Target those who actively intend to purchase your products and/or engage with your brand, and personalize your ads to tailor your messaging to potential customers. But this is an imaginary world. This is something that we're living in right now, and our leading marketers, our leading customers are leveraging the power of audience solutions, especially across the display network, to reach those audience members and be as effective and efficient as possible with their marketing dollars. Let's think about just the Google Display Network alone. It reaches 95% of global internet users. I'll say that one more time. It reaches 95% of global internet users. That's a pretty crazy amount. And we do that through enabling advertisers to engage with users with uniquely tailored ad formats on Gmail, YouTube, and Google Play, each of which have over 1 billion users a month. Beyond Google's own properties, we work directly with over 2 million websites and 1 million app publishers across a growing number of verticals and categories. And plus, the Google Display Network taps into a growing number of third-party ad exchanges that cover the globe. This coupled with our reach on search ensures that advertisers and business owners like you are able to reach potential customers wherever their journey may take them. So to connect the right ads with the right people in the right place, we recommend implementing this simple framework: identify, re-engage, and expand. And I'm going to go through all of these points here. So when we talk about identify, it's all about understanding who your target audience is so you can leverage them as a strategic asset. Then moving on to re-engagement, serving your existing audience relevant, powerful messages in the moments that matter, and moving beyond existing customers into an acquisition strategy, expanding your reach and extending into new qualified users who look like your current customers, but perhaps those who you've never connected with before, never been to your website, never shopped for your products or services. So that first tip here is to identify and really truly know your audience so you can leverage them as a strategic asset. So the first step here is really understanding what you already know about your existing customers. So what's their target population? What demographic do they fall into? What keywords are they searching online? How are they engaging with your brand? That information that you probably already have a pretty good sense about, whether you're a marketer or a business owner here. The second element here is really coupling your knowledge from the offline world or from other marketing channels and pairing it off with AdWords data so you can learn more about your existing audience. And really the key to that here is not just leveraging Google Analytics, but making sure that you're tagging your website and understanding, leveraging the audience insights report in AdWords and in Analytics to understand who your audience is. So what do your past converters have in common with maybe your shopping cart abandoners? What are your all visitors? What's the demographic range of your all visitors? What is really those traits, those things that they're in market for that can help fuel your existing marketing strategy here? So when you've understood who that target audience is, the next step here is to decide whether you want to re-engage your existing audience or expand into a customer acquisition strategy here. So I'll say for 90% of customers, 90% of clients, we always recommend a re-engagement strategy. What I mean by that is using products like remarketing on the display network or remarketing on Google search, so you can serve relevant, powerful messages to users who've already been to your site before. The reason why we recommend starting with a re-engagement strategy first is that these products typically yield a higher return on investment, right? You've already spent your marketing dollars to get those customers to your website, whether it's through Google AdWords, through social, through other offline means to get them to come to your website. Spend a little bit more of that investment to actually make them go ahead and convert or complete that action that you're looking to take here. The times when we recommend starting with an expansion strategy expansion strategy first here is maybe when you're just trying to purely go after new customer acquisition. So maybe you have a really short conversion window, or that you're just trying to go after new customers. That's when I would actually recommend starting with an expansion strategy. So by that, we're going to talk about those products later, but similar audiences, in-market audiences, customers who have never heard of your products or never been to your website before. Cool. So let's dive into re-engagement. So this is step 2 in our framework. So making sure that we're serving our existing audience relevant, powerful messages in those moments that matter. So the product here that we always recommend for customers is display remarketing. Display remarketing at its very fundamental core is re-engaging with users who've already been to your website before and showing them relevant ads wherever they may be across the GDN. A lot of you are probably familiar with remarketing, but just to give a high-level overview here, essentially the recommendation is you want to go ahead and tag your website with a snippet of code that we provide within both Google Analytics and Google AdWords. And from there, you can actually create different types of audience lists. So you can make a list for people who've just visited your homepage, maybe people who have visited a specific product page, or folks who've actually, been to the checkout cart and abandoned the cart, and even folks who've actually made a purchase before. What's great about remarketing is you can encourage previous site visitors who you've already engaged with before but have not yet converted to actually take that final step and complete that action, and ultimately help to drive those conversions in your funnel there. Another great way to leverage remarketing is by fostering customer loyalty and leveraging repeat purchasers by encouraging your existing, your all converters customers to come back to your site. Maybe you can cross-sell different products or services with them, or maybe if you have a strong business where you have repeat sales, continuing to target those users across the GDN here. The last really great thing that I love about our display remarketing products is you can actually customize your ad copy to serve different messages depending on whether a user has just been to your homepage or whether they've actually gone ahead and abandoned their shopping cart at the last minute. What I mean by that is maybe for folks who've been to your site, they've only been to the homepage before, maybe you just kind of serve them a generic ad that just talks about your business and the different products and services that you have in that ad copy there. But maybe for an individual who made it all the way to the checkout page, but then actually never converted, they're a shopping cart abandoner, maybe in that display creative, you add a promo code into that creative. So you give them a little bit more incentive to actually go forth and complete that purchase and get them to come back to that site there. So what's really great about our re-engagement solutions here is that you can alter the messaging depending on who the audience is that you're trying to target. Another display re-engagement tactic that a lot of our customers use is dynamic remarketing, which is incredibly similar as remarketing here. But what's different about dynamic is, if you're an e-commerce website or you sell specific products or service, you can actually go ahead and serve that specific pair of boots that your customer may have been looking at, so you can continue to help drive that conversion there. So the third and final pillar here is all about expansion, expanding your reach to new qualified users who you've never connected with before. At the end of the day, there's always going to be a finite number of users who've been to your website, right? And it's really important to make sure that as you're thinking through your marketing strategy, you're not just re-engaging with your existing customers. In that point, you're never going to grow. You're never going to really expand. So it's really important to make sure that you're driving acquisition to help bring users into that funnel so you can, go ahead and then re-engage with them as well, or continue to drive conversions here. So we have a lot of different expansion products that we recommend on Google. A lot of you have probably heard of similar audiences or smart display campaigns, for example. I'm just going to cover two of my favorite products. And the first one is in-market audiences for display. So in-market audience is all about driving higher consideration amongst people who've already actively researched and intend to buy your products and service that you offer. We utilize sophisticated algorithms, machine learnings, and signals to actually identify if a customer is not just to be able to differentiate if a customer is interested in a product or service or actually intends to buy that product or service in real time. The example I'll use here is I love cars. I am a very big car fanatic here, and I live in the Bay Area. I don't own a car, unfortunately. It's too expensive to park, but Google probably knows that although I'm spending a lot of time browsing different car blogs online, doing research on the newest makes and models, I'm actually not interested in I actually don't intend to buy a car right now in this moment. So I never really see ads for different types of makes and models on cars across the GDN, across search, across YouTube. But let's say, for example, that Megan is interested in buying a new Dodge truck. We're going to know that based on how she's spending her time online, whether it's through searches that are taking place, whether it's through different blogs or partner websites that we have or various YouTube videos that she is watching, we know that she may be interested in buying a truck in this moment, and we'll be able to leverage those signals to serve her ads across the display network. What I really love about this is the moment that we determine that Megan is no longer intent, she no longer intends to purchase that car, we'll take her off that in-market segment, so she's no longer seeing those ads for various trucks here. So this is a really great tactic if you are across a number of different verticals, whether it's automotive, whether it's financial services, whether it's e-commerce, to help drive folks who are in market to come visit your product or service. Another recent product that has been getting a lot of great use cases for here is custom intent audiences for display. It's very similar to in-market audience in that we're leveraging intent signals to understand who is looking for specific products or services in real time. But what's awesome about custom intent audiences is that if you are a really niche business, or you're marketing for a really niche product or service, you can actually develop your own audience through a combination of URLs and keywords. So a great example is I worked with a client of ours that sells a very specific computer software. And they weren't able to find an in-market category that worked for them. It was a little bit too vague or a little bit high level. So they actually leveraged custom intent on the GDN and developed their own audience based on a specific criteria of keywords and URLs. And we use that information to basically aggregate an audience so you can target individuals who are looking for that specific type of software or that specific type of product or service you're offering, and not just a higher level in-market category like automotive or general computer software, for example, here. This is a really great tactic, again, for fueling your funnel and driving new leads into your business, and ultimately helping to drive conversions at the end of the day here. So these are just two of my favorite products. I highly recommend heading to our help center or talking to the team at Catalyst here for other products that we offer across the display network that are great for not just re-engagement, but acquisition, so you can continue to drive new users to your website. So my last point here I want to make is that this is a never-ending process. This is a very cyclical process, right? If you started by implementing re-engagement tactics using remarketing on the display network, you want to continue to move on and expand into those expand products to introduce your brand to new qualified audiences. This step ensures that you're constantly filling your funnel and fueling your business growth, right? But if you started by implementing an expansion tactic, you want to make sure that those customers that you are those new customers that you are driving to your website, you're continuing to serve them relevant ads. So ultimately, they go ahead and complete that conversion at the end of the day. So thank you so much for having me here today for the Catalyst team. I hope you learned something on the Google side, and I'll be here at the end to help answer any questions that you may have. So I'll pass it back over to the Catalyst team.
All right, thank you, Luke. We're just going to take a second to take the screen back, and Cara will join us with tip number 4.
All right, so for the last tip, I am going to talk about ways to innovate using the GDN kind of above and beyond the traditional uses. So one of the best things about the Google Display Network is the ability to target very precisely without sacrificing reach, which you usually have to do if you are targeting a very specific segment of people, or efficiency, which is another thing that often falls by the wayside when you're doing that. As Luke earlier referenced, the GDN is able to reach 95% of users worldwide on 2 million websites. That is a lot. It's also cost effective. It's the only platform with that kind of reach which can also still drive traffic at like 25% CPCs, which is just so efficient. So the layered targeting options also, which Luke covered off on really nicely. So sophisticated targeting means that you're going to get qualified traffic. So why does all this matter, the reach and the cost efficiency and the targeting? Basically because in the real world, this is all stuff that you need. You need to be able to have traffic volume. You need to be able to ramp up quickly enough. Like, you can't just be running something for you can't just be running something for like 6 months and not have results. And you need to be able to do it, cost effectively as your initial investment. So let's get into some of the details of, how to stretch the possibilities of the GDN. Like, what are some ways to use it to get more leads, better ROI in less time than it would normally take to make that kind of an improvement. So classic use of the GDN, drive actions, improve brand awareness, influence consideration, and all terrific. But you could also use it as a traffic source for testing. So this has a huge benefit in that you get inexpensive, highly targeted traffic at scale. There's some really cool built-in reporting functionality. And you can also grow your remarketing pool, and that's really important because that can help offset your immediate costs. So obviously, test has a longer-term intrinsic value, but the remarketing pool growth is really going to help you, kind of offset the cost of actually running the tests of your learnings. So I'm not sure how everyone on the phone currently thinks about targeting. Sometimes it's kind of a rote exercise, like, yeah, I know the demographics, check the boxes, here's what I want. I would encourage you all to kind of push beyond that and think really carefully about your audience, how to reach them, what you're trying to do, and don't just sort of like, check the boxes, because the way that you target on the Google Display Network is make or break for campaigns. So as far as targeting options go, Luke really covered off on this pretty well, but this, I think, is a useful kind of like high-level reference for afterwards if you download and you're designing your own tests. So I'm just going to breeze right past that one. So your best chance to have an ad show is going to be by using ads in sizes and formats that publishers have inventory for. So taking a look at that briefly, so text ads are actually a really good place to start. They don't require any resources to develop. It's the most widely available format. Display ads also have they all have their advantages and disadvantages. Display ads are good. You've got static, that's kind of standard, or you have rich if you've got those assets. So carousel, animated, interactive, and video ads, which are terrific for low-cost clicks. With the caveat that this is really only appropriate if you have kind of like 15-second or less video assets, and it's appropriate to drive the users to the YouTube channel. So quick touch on attribution overview, because effective reporting is a super important part of our job as marketers. So the GDN actually has a report called an impression report, which will tell you how your creatives are performing even if users don't click on them, which I think is kind of amazing and a terrific way to take advantage of all those impressions and getting in front of all those eyeballs. There's also multi-channel reports, so you can look at the assisted conversions report and the conversion pathing reports, and from that you can get a sense of kind of how users are moving back and forth between channels as they progress through the funnel, and what parts of the site is kind of helping them to flow smoothly towards the conversion, and where are they getting stuck and maybe leaving. You also want to think about attribution modeling, so last click, first click, distributed weight, and benchmarking is something you're also going to need to think about beforehand. If you haven't run a GDN campaign, you're going to need to get creative. So use an analogous channel. Like if you've run display before, that seems fairly straightforward. But use whatever you have. If all you've got to look at as far as past results is regular paid search text ads, then that's what you use. And it's not like your 7% top performing, 7% click-through rate, top performing non-brand paid search ad is going to have that same 7% CTR on the GDN, but it might be your top performer or it might not. And either way, you're going to really learn something about what's appealing to users in both formats. Like, is it appealing to users who are searching and actively looking? Is it appealing to users who are kind of going about their business in other places on the web and they see the ad? So that's one thing to think about. So as far as what a winning test looks like, I just want to touch on this briefly because I think setup and planning gets glossed over a lot, and if you're not careful with it, you can run into some issues like scrambling to report if you haven't set it up in a way that it's easy to pull your results. You might end up with unclear results, like you've accidentally introduced another variable. You might, I wouldn't recommend doing this, set it and forget it. So, you kind of like set it up and then other things happen and 3 minutes later you look back and it's spent $10,000 and you're like, uh-oh, I don't have great results from this, so now I have to explain why I allowed this to run for 3 months because it was just, I was ignoring it. So the solutions to all of this it's fairly straightforward. Develop a clear test plan. Make sure that you're aligning on the test goals and KPIs with key decision makers beforehand, and make sure that you have a post-test plan in place to implement the changes from the learning. So like follow through on what you learned and have all that stuff, ready before you even pitch to the key decision maker. So now that the kind of like bigger picture of testing stuff is covered, I wanted to move into some specific use cases to talk about ways to apply this. So let's say looking at a vertical where you've got DTC with TV and other mass media channels. So your client is an airline and they want to test offers like free Wi-Fi versus upgrade packages versus more legroom. They're running online, offline, like they're running huge campaigns. So KPIs here are going to be engagement. So you're going to definitely want to look at click-through rate, what's getting their attention in the first place. And you're going to want to look at the back end also. So look at the bounce rate, look at the time on site. What's working at getting and keeping people's attention. For assets, you should really have access to assets in all formats because, this is running campaigns in all channels. So use everything you have and everything that makes sense. And for targeting, definitely, as Luke mentioned at the top, in market is a great one for travel because that's pretty easy to identify. People do a ton of research before booking flights and planning trips. And you can also add keyword targeting to that to scale. The next use case is a little different. So let's say you work for a B2B company and they sell enterprise software. It's a little similar to kind of like what Luke was talking about. Let's say that your target audience is engineers in aerospace and defense. So your KPIs here are going to be click-through rate, like how do you get their attention, and time on site to see how deeply users are engaging. For the creative, this is a niche industry, right? Like that's a pretty specific audience. So this is somewhere where you're probably okay to use text and static ads. Like if you have more interesting assets that you want to test, by all means, go for it. But if you don't, I think you're fine with just sort of like regular stuff. And as for targeting, certainly interest in topic targeting to find the engineers in the aerospace, defense, whatever industry. Custom intent, like Luke just mentioned, is another terrific option. You should layer, I would consider layering demographic targeting either as a positive or a negative. And you can look at placement campaigns as well on industry sites. One thing I would say is that placement can be tough to scale. So I would run your other campaigns first for a while, use your placement reports to pull together a really robust list of sites to target, and then launch your placement campaign with the benefit of that stuff. So looking at the next use case, e-com. So saying your company here is a high-volume clothing retailer. So a minor site change which increases conversion rate can actually increase your ROI hugely. Your customers are women 18 to 24, and you know that they're motivated by savings offers. So your KPI is really going to be conversion rate and volume, as well as like time on site as a secondary one to see what's engaging them, what's not. For creatives, use rich media, use everything that's available. This is actually one where if you don't have anything available, you can use Google's tools to create a static ad. You could try that out because you're already going to have access to quality pictures on the site. So you can do somewhat of a DIY approach for this one. And as for targeting, definitely demographic layers on everything. Affinity is a good one here because users will click and buy if they see an appealing ad. Topic is also good because fashion is a really high volume category and it's easy for algorithms to understand. Placement's excellent also because in this case, it's a pretty broad vertical. There's lots of high traffic sites. And finally, remarketing. Luke talked about that a little bit, but yeah, of course, like someone's visited the site, they've listed a specific thing, like we'll show them that again and give them a promo code. Like, you know, that's a terrific way to re-engage and convert users. And for the last use case, looking at a specific vertical, automotive. So let's say your client is a major car brand. Cars have a pretty long buying cycle. Your client wants to improve consideration rates with new users. So how are you going to do that, and how are you going to know it's working? So click-through rate's pretty important because automotive is a hugely competitive market. And then I would also use actions on site as a proxy for interest and high intent to, again, see what's working, see what's not working. So for creatives, like use everything. Here is an example of a great time to send people to use YouTube videos, send people to your YouTube channel. For targeting, definitely in market for active buyers because the client's goal is partly, you know, consideration, ultimately conversion, but, you know, in the shorter term consideration. Affinity and topic is pretty good for car enthusiasts. You can be very savvy also with keyword here, targeting key value propositions like safety, reliability, long-term value. And the other thing that you could do with keyword here is competitive conquesting. And of course, placement, there's a ton of literature out there as there is with fashion. So that's another good option there. So you have run your test. What do you do next? So really, enact the site changes. Do the results translate to other channels? If you're fairly confident that they will, you know, you can go, or if you're not running that many other channels, you know, you can go ahead and push the site changes. If not, I would probably recommend splitting the traffic from other channels in an A/B, using your learnings, you know, in the B, and just seeing how that applies to other channels. For ad copy, obviously, you're going to want to rotate in the winners and dump the losers. Ambiguous results. So this happens a little more often in real life than I would like it to, but it does happen sometimes. You know, you just don't get kind of clear results. So you redesign, you retest, and this is where, you know, having it be cheap, having it be fast, and being able to increase your remarketing pool is going to save you when you are in a situation where you have to present somewhat murky results to a room full of executives. And then, you know, finally, move on to your next test. Iterate on your learnings and design your next test. And that's it for tip 4. I'm going to pass it back to Erica.
All right. Thank you, Cara, and thank you, Luke, for your insights on the Google Display Network. Before we take some of your questions, we just wanted to let you know about our next webinar coming up at the end of April. The webinar is going to be 5 Pinterest pointers. It's going to be on Thursday, April 26th, and it's going to begin at 1:15 Eastern Time. You'll be able to sign up at catalystdigital.com and make sure to click on the webinar bar at the top of the screen. So now we're going to take some of your questions. Okay. All right, so one question we have is, why should I invest in display when search drives low CPAs and performance? Who would like to tackle this question?
I can tackle that one. Can you all hear me okay? Cool, great. Cool. So hi, everyone. This is Luke again. So the question, just to repeat it, is why should I invest in display when, you know, my search is driving really strong CPAs and results for my client or for my business? This is a question I get all the time, especially from across different verticals, across different business owners here. And what I'd say to this is, we all know that search is an incredibly effective tool for reaching the right audience, right? It's leveraging the power of intent and what individuals are directly searching for and showing them ads in a really captivating way on the Google search page. But at the end of the day, we know that users only spend so much time on search, right? Like people are only going to search to go ahead and search for specific things and then be directed to different websites. So it's really important that since individuals spend their time across a variety of different platforms, different websites, we're not just leveraging search, but we are also leveraging the Google Display Network and the power we have behind it. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we do have really great performance tools, especially for re-engagement and acquisitions, that when set up correctly and when as Cara mentioned, like when you have effective targeting in place, it's really going to drive strong results. When we see high CPAs or poor performance, it's really because we're not setting our campaigns up for success with the proper targeting, with the proper creative strategy in place. So it's incredibly important that we are trying to set ourselves up for success on the display network, but ultimately it all comes back to just being sure that you are there wherever your customers may be online, because they're going to be on search, they're going to be on social, they're going to be on YouTube, and they're going to spend a lot of their time browsing different websites that are our partners on the GDN here. So great question. Thanks for asking.
All right, thank you, Luke. And another question we received is, how do you convince key decision makers to give it a try, especially if they've tried GDN before and haven't had success?
I can jump in on that. So I would, to be honest, I would probably back into this one by talking them through kind of and getting them really excited about kind of the learnings and results from a specific campaign. And once they're kind of on board with that, like, yeah, let's check this out, let's figure this out, like what messaging is going to work, what landing page is going to work, what style of creative is going to work. Then once they're excited about that and the possibilities of, kind of like not just a successful campaign, but being able to apply those learnings in different places, then go ahead and suggest using the Google Display Network as a medium. And that's the point at which you can kind of stress the benefits. So like cost efficiency, remarketing, like highly qualified traffic, like speed of tests. So that's really how I would do it, is kind of back into it with like selling them on the idea of how it's going to work and then getting the kind of like the method.
All right, thank you, Cara. All right, so that looks like that's all we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar, and we hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.